Jesus would often teach about what was right in front of him. And what was right in front of him was the temple and the teachers there. And Jesus didn't really think much of them. After critiquing the religious leaders, he pauses near the treasury and watches folks give offerings. And Jesus' attention is drawn to a woman whom we are told is a widow. And she makes a gift to the temple. It wasn't much. It was one of those gifts that had a bigger impact on the woman than it did on the temple, at least in financial terms, for it was just 2 lepta. They were the smallest Greek copper coins, not much value. You can't even get a gumball with them these days. But Jesus said it was all she had to live on. It was everything. And she put it all in the offering plate. And Jesus makes sure that his disciples see her. Look, that woman. Did you see that? Do you see her? Now, some modern interpreters believe the tone of Jesus' voice is one of lament, even anger. Do you see that? Do you see her? What's wrong with this picture? What we are witnessing is an injustice. As one New Testament scholar writes, her contribution was totally misguided thanks to the encouragement of official religion. But not only that, it was also a waste. Why would her generosity be a waste? Well, they say misguided because just a few verses before, Jesus says, beware of scribes who seek the best seats in the synagogue and banquets, who say long prayers, for they devour widows' houses. Jesus condemns the scribes because they are corrupt. They use their religious power to dehumanize the weaker members of society. It's dishonorable. It's like the people today who send their Social Security checks to the TV preachers who promise their generosity will bless them, but the preachers use these gifts to buy private planes and $5,000 suits. It's wrong. There's no doubt the temple was corrupt. Jesus says so himself. Some say to support a corrupt institution is misguided. I understand that. Some say it's also a waste, because in the very next chapter, Jesus says the temple won't even last. It'll be destroyed. Not one stone will be left upon another. And he was right about that. The Romans would destroy the temple. The woman gave her gift to a temple that had no future. And many readers of the gospel are convinced that Jesus looks at this woman and it breaks his heart because of the injustice of it all. She shouldn't be the one giving her last 2 cents. The temple should be giving her money to live on. I can't say that isn't right. Maybe it's partly right. You can have more than one feeling at a time. I learned this from an episode of Daniel Tiger the other day. You can feel more than one feeling. You know that. So I think maybe there's more to this story and what Jesus is saying and feeling. He can be angry at the situation, but also admire the woman. See, I'm not arguing the temple wasn't corrupt. It was. It's an institution. And no institution is pure. Not the church, or the temple, or the government, or the 501c3. Institutions, after all, are all just groups of people, and people aren't pure or perfect. All have their failings. Perfection in our institutions is just not an option. Now, Jesus could not abide injustice, but this is also true of Jesus. None of us are defined by our failings and our flaws alone. We'd be good to remember that, because it's so easy for us to pick the flaws and the failings of an institution, of a candidate, of a person, of a neighbor, and define them by that and forget everything else. A friend of mine called my attention to an article written by Colson Whitehead called "The Loser Edit That Awaits Us All." Sounds like a positive read. Whitehead reflects on all those reality TV shows where someone gets booted off the cooking show because her muffin was dry, or you get kicked off the island because you can't swing across the river on that vine. Whitehead says all these shows, what makes these shows work is that the viewer starts developing his or her own sense of who's going to get booted off the island, kicked out of the house, told to pack their knives and go home. We figure out in our minds by watching who's not worthy, who doesn't have what it takes. So when Samantha gets the heave-ho, we say, I knew it. I saw it coming. I'm pretty good at judging these guys. You could tell Ramon was too nervous to pull off that carrot 3 ways. Never do a dish 3 ways. It just gives you more opportunities to fail. I've learned that from Top Chef. Whitehead says all these shows work because across the hour of the show, a narrative of frailties and self-centered actions emerge, and he calls it the loser edit. The loser edit brings into focus the weaknesses and failings of a contestant, so when they do get the boot, we think he had it coming. Those weaknesses should be punished. There's a winner edit too, of course. The winner edit pulls into focus the moments of heroism and victory and strength, all to justify those on top. So we think the person who wins should have won. Now, this isn't new. When TV programs first began, the good guys would wear white hats and the bad guys would wear black hats. This way, we wouldn't get confused about the status of people's souls. We could just see what color hat they wore. It's very easy. It's a bit more sophisticated now with the edit, but it's still the same. The program, the producers are defining who is good, who is evil, who deserves to win, who deserves to lose. You don't become the villain on The Real Housewives of Hershey because you're awful. You're created as one. And I guarantee, if our lives were followed around by a camera, every one of us could be portrayed as a self-centered villain of the show. Think about it. Pick your worst moments, when your temper goes off a little bit, your most self-centered moments, the time you say something foolish, the time you were heartless. If our lives were edited by someone, we could probably each be edited as the hero. We could probably each be edited as the villain. So when people are voted off or kicked off, they had it coming. So we think, as Whitehead says, your bad fortune is justice because you are bad. That's what the edits lead us to believe. And sometimes I wonder if we apply these edits to America and to other Americans, the winner or the loser edit. We have narratives that extol America as the hero of the world, the white hat nation, pure and true. And we have narratives that paint America as the villain of the world, wicked and evil. Neither narrative, neither edit is honest or real or the full picture. We have been and are both, depending on your perspective and the edit you receive. There are a lot of folks who define themselves as patriots, who define other people who are clearly American as being un-American. I wonder, how can one love one's country if you don't love the people of your country? How does that work? Oh, we all see the failings of folks who see things differently than we do, and we're right. We can always see failings. It's easy to point out failings because none of us is pure or perfect. We have our own loser edit of them, of the group, of the candidate, of the neighbor, of the other faith, the other lifestyle. See, the problem with the loser edit is that it's just an edit. It's an edited version of the story, designed to make you and others think a certain thing. We compare our best with their worst and then feel proud of ourselves for looking so good. In our text this morning, the scribes are corrupt. They take advantage of this widow who should have been the recipient of their generosity. But instead, she gives her last penny to the temple. Shame on them for being so self-centered that they care more for her gift than for her. The temple should come down. That's what many modern scholars affirm. And I see that, but that's not all I see. I'm not sure Jesus is just heartbroken when he points out this woman. Don't get me wrong, Jesus could not abide injustice, but I wonder if we might see something else in this moment, something that inspires him. I think he looks at her and sees a bit of himself. Here's what I mean. She looks at the temple and she sees an institution she believes in, that she is committed to even with all its flaws. She knows that the leadership is compromised and stands on clay feet, but she gives her life for it, not because it's perfect, but because she loves it. She gives all she has to a corrupt institution. And Jesus does exactly the same thing. He gives his life for a corrupt world because that is what love does. They are the same. She just did it first. I wonder if watching her gave him courage, if her gift to the temple was really a gift to him too, and she never knew it. That's how gifts often work. Jesus knows this world is a mess. Jesus knows the world is not worthy of his sacrifice, and with that knowledge, he gives himself for us and for all, not because we're perfect, but because he loves. And some might say his sacrifice was misguided. Others might say it was a waste of his life. He could have done so much more. But maybe he shows us how to lean into our better angels for a flawed and imperfect world. It may seem odd, but this passage informs my patriotism. I think that those who really love America sacrifice for her. We honor soldiers who sacrifice for the nation, but what about the rest of us? Sacrifice as a form of love cannot be outsourced. I think Christian faith is largely about the common good. It's fine to wave the flag, it's fine to have a parade, but patriotism means loving the neighbor and serving the community. That's the work of the Christian and the patriot. I think a faith-informed patriotism means sacrificing for the common good, for one another, for all, even if we don't think they deserve it, even if they aren't perfect. We have many in America who serve others. I think of first responders who go into harm's way to rescue from rubble or storm, the Coast Guard, the National Guard, the military, but that's not all. I see it in our welcome team who has done so much to help a family from Syria start over here, giving their time, their resources, their energy. I see it in those who serve at the racetrack and Love Inc. and Mobile Meals. I see it in teachers who do so much to educate and care for children, and medical professionals who heal, and nonprofit workers who feed the hungry, house the homeless, provide legal services to the poor. I see it in those who give up their money, their time, their comfort to help someone else, someone they may not even know. That's patriotism. It is seeing the human in another and sacrificing for the common good, not because they are perfect, but because that's what love does. And I see it in you all the time. And I especially see it in our children who are so quick to help others. I was touched several months ago by the story of a young boy who played soccer with one of the boys in the Syrian refugee family we have been helping. This boy told his mother that he wanted to learn Arabic to be a better friend and to help his friend feel more at home here. That's being a patriot. We live in a world where corruption is all around us and in all of us. But there's a bit of Jesus in us as well. I see it in those of you who work at Love Inc. You don't require the clients to be pure. You just insist they shouldn't be hungry or homeless. I see it in our Mission and Peace Committee who have had the courage to ask, how can we be less racist as a society? How can we make amends for our past? How can we be inclusive of all people where they all feel welcome and loved and valued? I see it in Craig Smith, who's so often helping serve breakfast at downtown Daily Bread and encouraging others to help there or the racetrack and the food bank. I see it in those of you who take a week of vacation to travel with our youth on a mission trip, like those going to Niagara Falls in a couple weeks. Those who will spend their evenings next week helping with VBS. Those who contributed extra money to build a school, provide scholarships in Pakistan. Education is the best way to achieve social change. I could go on, but you get my point. We live in a nation like every nation that needs saving. And like most nations, ours has little idea that she needs saving. But we do. We aren't pure. We aren't perfect. We aren't inclusive of all. We still have tiers of levels of citizenship. It may not be codified into law, but it's codified into law. We say, well, this group can't have this, and this group this can't have this, and this group we're going to give you a little extra. And we judge each other right and left, and we hate each other right and left. And we wonder what's the point. Should we give anything to this nation anymore? And the answer is yes. Because while it has its flaws, it has its beauties and its goodness. Just like each of us, we have our flaws and mistakes and our prejudices, and we have our wonderful traits and our beauty and our love. And Jesus says, love the kind of love I love you with, which means loving despite the imperfections. You do not sacrifice for the common good because the nation is pure, for we're not. You do it because you love America. And when you love like that, I think Jesus sees a bit of himself in you. And I wonder if just like he did all those years ago at the temple, maybe Jesus calls his disciples together in heaven and says, look there, look at Derry Church. Do you see them? They look a bit like me. Did you see that? They love without restrictions. They love without requirements. They welcome without rules. They make a difference in people's lives because that's what love does. Because that's what I did for them. Do you see Derry? I see my love. This table is a reminder of that love, that Jesus gave his body and his blood to a world that wasn't pure, that wasn't perfect, was full of corruption, and still Jesus said, I give my life. I lay my life down for it and for you. This love, this table is for all of you. No matter who you are, what you've done, who you love, how you vote, where you were born, the color of your skin, how much money is in your bank account, whether you've been confirmed or baptized. No, this love is for you. There's no restrictions. There's no requirements, except you come and you taste and see that the Lord is good. And he loves you because that's what love does.